Hello, this is a follow-up video for the Summit Speaker Series that we participated in on Tuesday, March 24th. Sorry we weren't able to get to everybody's questions, but I thought this might be a good way to answer a few of the questions that we didn't have time for them. Some of these I have kind of condensed because some of the questions were similar, so I've condensed it down to like 12 topics, and I'll try to speak to them as best I can. So if I answer your question, great. If not, I'm sorry. I hope you do get some interesting information out of this, though, and I certainly hope everybody's being safe out there, washing their hands, avoiding big crowds. Let's all do our part, okay? We've all got to be in this together. So anyway, first question is, when did I start composing? Well, I actually started pretty young, but it wasn't anything like what I do now. I mean, what I do now is on a pretty high level of composition, but I started when I was very young, basically improvising on a piano keyboard. I had an electronic piano that I would play, and I started by picking out tunes. Like, I would hear something that I wanted to play, and I would just by ear teach myself how to pick it out. And eventually it just became, oh, well, I want to make my own stuff. And so I started doing that. So I was probably, oh gosh, about 10 or 11 when I started doing that. The next big section of questions all have to do with where my inspiration comes from. Some of them are about specific pieces, and some are just kind of general, so I'm going to kind of make it one big topic. So as far as where my inspiration comes from, I mean, it comes from a variety of places. I pretty much leave myself open to be inspired by anything at any moment. So, I mean, sometimes I might think of a cool title, like the title of a piece might make me want to write something that sounds like that title. Sometimes I might read something or see a picture, and that inspires it, a movie or a video game. But sometimes it's also just the music itself. Like, I'll just sit down, play chords, play melodies, and that kind of drives my inspiration there. If you want some of the specific ideas, like some pieces that were asked about, the Darkland series comes from a series of paintings and pictures and stories that I've written and created over the course of years. And that served as the inspiration for all of those pieces in various ways. One of my goals long-term is to be able to release some of the artwork and some of the stories for mass market. Actually hoping to do that for this summer and fall. We'll see how that goes, but that is a goal. Another piece that was asked about, sorry for the interruption, ended up having a phone call. I forgot to turn this thing off, so I'm going to make sure that it is totally off right now. See, even composers make mistakes. So anyway, some of the pieces that were asked about specifically were like When the Spring Rain Begins to Fall. I'm a big nature person. I really like being out in nature, hiking, going out, doing things like that. And so when the spring rain begins to fall, one of my favorite moments in weather is like when it's just dreary and you hear the rain and it's just kind of rumbly, because in Arkansas where I live, we get a lot of thunder showers. And so you'll hear like this gentle thunder off in the distance, sometimes big thunder right over you, but mostly off in the distance. And just the rain kind of pattering and everything. And I just wanted to capture that emotion and kind of that moment. Another one that was asked about is Chala, Dance of the Volcano Goddess. That one just came totally from my imagination. I was just imagining this, like, village on this island where there's a volcano, and these people kind of, doing this ritualistic dance. And so the piece is pretty dark and violent, but I think it's pretty cool. So another one that was asked about was Armory. I mentioned that I'm a big video gamer. I love playing video games, and that was inspired by video game music. And then also another one that was asked about is Ruckus. Ruckus was written just because I'm a percussionist, as I've mentioned, and you can see my marimba behind me. I love loud music. I love exciting stuff, and I just wanted to write something that kind of captured that energy. Plus, it has kind of a jazz, what would be called spy jazz feel, like if you've ever seen like The Incredibles, James Bond, Mission Impossible, things like that. It definitely has that flavor to it, and that was on purpose, because I wanted something that sounded kind of dangerous, sneaky, and sly. So another question is a kind of group of questions is, what is the process I go through to write a piece? It always starts with just brainstorming, whether it be like me writing on a pad, kind of singing to myself, or improvising. And then I'll sketch out the piece, kind of put melodies and harmonies and rhythms together to make sure they form a good overall piece. And then I go through and orchestrate it and write a few drafts with slight changes to see which ones I like the best. And then I eventually settle on the final version. With my published works, I usually submit it to an editor who will help me make some decisions about it, and that's always helpful. I never think that I necessarily have the best ideas, and getting somebody else's input is always very valuable to me. Another question is, how long does it take me to write music? Basically until it's done. I mean, I've written pieces in as little as 2.5 hours, and I've also written pieces that have taken me months. One of my pieces, Starfire Fanfare, took me about 2.5 hours to write, and then the piece Stonewall 1969 took me, 3 to 4 months to write. And then I've also got another piece called Gadget that I wrote the first half of in about 2 weeks. But then I just didn't know what I wanted to do with it after I got to the middle. Like, I got to this point and I was like, it wasn't exactly like writer's block, but it was just like, I just wasn't sure. I was like, I'm not sure where I want this to go. So I put it down for a while, and then literally 2 years later, finally had what I thought was a good idea and went back to it. So that, even though the overall writing time was about 3 weeks, it was like 2 weeks separated by 2 years, and then a week to finish off the last part once I had the idea. Where did I study? I studied at Arkansas State University, which is right here in Jonesboro, where I live. Great music school. If any of you are looking for a good music school to attend, I highly recommend it. But, you know, the advice I give to most people going to college is go someplace you can afford where you won't have to take out loans, and go someplace that, you know, you've checked out and they have good faculty. A place doesn't have to be famous to be a good music school, so just check them out. What all instruments do I play? Well, I was a band director for 12 years, so I play all of the band instruments. I also play piano pretty well, not great, but pretty well, and I'm okay on guitar. I'm certainly no, you know, showman on it, but I can do okay on guitar. Eventually, I want to learn to play the accordion, and I also want to learn to play the violin a lot better. What do I want people to feel when they hear my music? Well, I want them to feel something. I mean, whether it be excitement, grief, mystery, fear, just whatever. I want them to have some kind of reaction. Or even if it's just a reaction of, oh, that's cool, or oh, I think that's pretty. To me, that's enough, because there's emotions and feelings that music inspires that really nothing else can. Am I currently working on a piece? Oh, yeah. I'm working on lots of pieces. In fact, I just today started my second symphony. Wrote about, a minute and a half worth of music today. Hopefully going to get up to about the 3-minute to 4-minute point tomorrow and have it finished by Monday. I'm going to take the weekend off to relax. Then, you know, finish it. It'll be finished by next week. It's going really, really well. I don't even want to tell you what it's about because I want it to be a surprise. What has been the most challenging piece you've written so far? Well, that would be Stonewall 1969, because it involved writing a huge piece of music that's 13 minutes long. But within the piece, I also had to write 2 original pop songs with lyrics that had to go along with it. And on top of that, I had to write a narrative poem that kind of weaves through the whole piece. And then I had to coordinate all of those elements to make sure that they made sense together. So that was by far the hardest thing I've ever had to write. What are some practice strategies? Well, for me, the biggest practice strategies, by the way, a great book for that is How to Make First Chair by Roberts. But for me, I start by just examining whatever music I'm about to play. I make sure I understand the rhythm, you know, the meter. I look for, is there anything in it that I don't know how to do? Is there anything that I need extra instruction on? Is there anything I need to write in, like accidentals or things like that? So I really examine the piece before I just sit down and start playing. Then I create a plan of attack. You know, about what tempo do I need to practice this at to create, you know, to do it well? Because one thing I don't want to do is just try to practice fast and play it wrong a bunch of times, because your body's going to absorb whatever muscle motion you take it through. So if you're doing things wrong a bunch of times, you're just teaching your body to do it wrong. And if you'll take it slow multiple times correctly, that's going to go a lot further towards getting you to play it correctly than anything else will. And then I just do that a bunch of times until my muscles have it memorized. What advice would I give high school students who want to grow as a composer? Write every single day. Don't ever make excuses. Write every single day. listen to a lot of music, including your own, but listen to other music that you like and try to examine, why do I like this? Third, study scores, or if you're writing EDM and stuff like that, study YouTube videos by producers and see like how are they putting stuff together. There's no reason for you to discover all this stuff on your own. There's tons of tutorials out there, so study it and get all the help you need. And then let people critique your music and be open to critique. Sometimes you'll write something you're really proud of, and somebody else may be like, that's not great, and here's why. You need to listen to that criticism, because if you only surround yourself with people that tell you how great you are, you will never grow. And then lastly, what is my favorite piece I've written? That would be a tie between Stonewall 1969, this other piece that's just called The Nine, like T-H-E-N-I-N-E, and another piece called A Christmas Tale, Beware the Krampus, which is just wickedly fun. All of those pieces are on YouTube if you want to take a listen to them, so I hope you will, and I hope you enjoy them. Anyway, thank you for all your questions, and again, I hope everybody's staying safe, and as always, peace, love, and music.